I would like to first point out that I watched the Ultimate Edition, which I personally think is a large improvement over the theatrical cut. Mostly, it fleshes out Lex Luthor's plan to frame Superman, which makes the film hold together better overall.
So, if man won't kill God,
2, 1.
the devil will do it.
I also want to say I really like Lawrence Fishburne's performance as Perry White. He steals every scene he's in.
No match. My guys in the crime lab never seen one before.
It's called a bullet. You shoot people with them.
The problem with this movie, other than this,
Kill Martha! Why did you say that name?
is that this film lacks focus. It can't seem to decide who its main character is between Batman, Superman, Lex Luthor, or Lois Lane. And it gives each of their stories about an equal amount of screen time, which doesn't help. Some parts of each story are very good, but there are many scenes that do nothing to propel the plot forward, whatever that particular plot might be at the time. This film should have concentrated on the confrontation between Batman and Superman at the hands of Lex Luthor, and should have left Doomsday for another film. But at the time, DC was so desperate to steal some of Marvel's thunder, they were basically rushing through everything to get to the big team-up films. And that Marvel-motivated mentality definitely shows in this movie, and it's probably the biggest reason it doesn't work. Batman is my favorite superhero, and I like it when movie makers understand Batman.
Because he doesn't care.
Wrong. It's the opposite. Underneath, he cares more than any of us.
I don't know. After Batman v Superman, it's nice coming back to a version of the character that makes sense to the character. Batman Unlimited was a trilogy of straight-to-video animated films that were only meant to sell toys. Despite this, none of these films are particularly bad, and in fact, the plot in this one of Penguin and Mr. Freeze teaming up to break well-known supercriminals out of Arkham Asylum is pretty good. Though after they do that, it gets really silly.
I think that'll do.
You ordered your own mech.
You think you're the only billionaire in the world?
The presentation of the film tends to fluctuate in quality throughout the movie's runtime. Mostly, it's just kind of boring and most scenes are too long. The parts in this that work mostly make up for the parts that are lacking though. The animation throughout is very good, and I like seeing this different style for all the characters. But the action in this film goes from not too bad to just okay fairly often. Vixen was a 2-season-long web series about a woman with the ability to call on the power of any animal. It was produced by the CW to go alongside their Arrowverse shows. This film is both seasons smashed together with a bit in the middle to help it flow a little better. It works fine for what it is, but, well, it feels exactly like two films thrown together with a boring part in between them. The voice acting, animation, and action are all pretty good, though this loses points for using the same action sequence within 10 minutes of each other. But stuff like this probably work better as a web series. As an aside, I do like this version of Vixen a lot, and I'm a little disappointed this didn't spin off into its own Arrowverse animated series or something. There's good action throughout this film, but the story, tone, and pacing are kind of all over the place. Ocean Master, with the help of Atrocitus, takes over Atlantis and sends the Justice League to the other side of the galaxy. Also, Deathstar's in it! Aw, so cute! Even as a Lego!
By the hairballs of Hades, that is one furious feline!
Anyway, this is a pretty good storyline for a straight-to-video Lego movie. The problem is that, for one, most of the jokes don't land, though some are pretty good if you like dad jokes. It also takes a good deal of time before the story starts to get good. Also, there are way too many plot lines going on. Green Lantern has to learn to be brave.
Come on, Ring! How about a little help here?
You must overcome your fear.
I can't!
Batman has issues with his utility belt.
Yet another handy tool from my all-purpose utility belt.
Ocean Master doesn't suspect Atrocitus.
Now to begin stage 3.
Wait, we only talked about 2 stages.
Superman loses his powers because the planet they're on is around a red sun.
Okay, Clark, you got this.
Batman doesn't like people who withhold information.
I don't recall him sharing that on his application form. Now I'll have to update his records.
Loba misses his fish friend.
I'm not here for a scuffle. I'm looking for my friend Fishy. You wouldn't by chance have seen my friend, would you?
Batman and friends build a spaceship. Mira is angry for some reason. Everyone is angry for some reason. Ocean Master changes the Constitution. Aquaman is a half-human dowsing rod. Robin is acting more like a kid to annoy Batgirl. This scene in the Mos Eisley Cantina. I'm just saying that this is a lot for a movie that's only an hour and 50 minutes long. Focus is what this movie lacks. That and particularly good jokes. First film in the DC Superhero Girls series.
You know how to start off with a real bang!
Supergirl gets used to being the new girl in a high school full of kids with superpowers. Anyway, though the entire concept of this is just insane, it does tell a decent story in the same vein as Harry Potter, except instead of magic, everyone has superpowers. Except the people that don't. Actually, why are non-superpowered people there anyway? That doesn't make sense. This is fun, though exceptionally corny, but the story itself feels more like something you'd see in a teenage girl's fan fiction than something someone paid money to produce. I guess this was made for TV, so it's forgivable, but it's just not what one might expect from a superhero storyline. Also, this film is only 40 minutes long, but it's really slow in the first half, and then it feels like it's rushing through everything in the second half. That just feels like it could have been fixed to me. This was originally another web series meant to be part of the CW's Arrowverse, but after the first episode failed to garner much interest, they repurposed the series into a standalone film not connected to anything else.
I was never in very deep, Deathstroke, you know that.
It's got a good animation style and good characterization, but it suffers from the same problem that Vixen has, where every 10 minutes or so it feels like the story has suddenly become about something else.
What are you doing?
Surrendering.
I do not accept your surrender.
There are some tonal issues because of that, though not nearly as extreme as it is in Vixen. Also, this goes straight for an R rating and doesn't mind showing blood and gore, which I personally think is a plus in superhero properties. It makes these fantasy worlds feel a bit more realistic. If the story was a bit more cohesive, this would have been higher on the list, but the perpetually shifting tones makes this film kind of a mixed bag. But if you don't like a scene, wait a few minutes and you might like the next one. One more compliment, and that's that the action throughout the film is pretty good and very fitting for a Deathstroke film. Another movie in the trilogy of Batman Unlimited films, meant exclusively to sell toys.
I don't think we got room, boss.
Never mind, I brought my own.
Much like Mechs vs. Mutants, this isn't terrible, but there are moments when the writers seem to have stopped caring about having a solid plot to shoehorn in scenes to sell toys, and that's when everything gets really silly. Also, it spends a great deal of time advertising for a video game that doesn't exist.
Yes! Completion bonus!
The mystery in this one is pretty good, since every Batman cartoon needs a mystery in it for some reason, and actually had a few twists that were unexpected as well. Can Batman defeat his most loyal ally? His car? Also, this short series doesn't seem to have a problem with just throwing more people in the DC universe into its story. This isn't always a good thing, but they balance storylines with Cyborg and Green Arrow as well as anyone in the Bat family. Also, something else I like, personally, in any superhero story is when the good guys lose really big, such as here when Joker takes over Gotham City. I mean, these are always temporary moments, as we know Batman will turn it around by the end. But it's nice to see some great loss like this that our heroes have to triumph over. For the most part, this is a fun movie with a good mystery and some well-done action. It's held back by some sillier parts of the plot, but this still manages to tell a story worthy of the Batman name. A sequel and attempted reboot of the franchise started with Christopher Reeves. This movie pretends Superman 3 and 4 didn't happen.
Let's start with the big question. Where'd you go?
And also, Lois and Superman have a kid together, but Lois is marrying someone else. Personally, I don't think this is a bad movie by any means, but the problem really just stems from how derivative this film is from the original Christopher Reeves movies. Also, let me use this as a time to complain about live-action Superman films. Mostly, the reason I like Superman in the comics is that he's the guy that protects the world from intergalactic threats. And what's most interesting to me is when Superman fights monsters or aliens that are more powerful than him, and he actually has to try harder than he normally does just fighting criminals on Earth. However, in the live-action films, it feels like they ignore all the Brainiacs or Mr. Mxyzptlk and instead make the villain Lex Luthor every single time.
Sounds great, Lex. But you're not a god.
Gods are selfish beings who fly around in little red capes and don't share their power with mankind.
I like Lex as a character. He almost doesn't need Superman to come in and stop him since he's constantly being crushed by the weight of his own ego.
I'll have advanced alien technology thousands of years beyond what anyone could throw at me. Bring it on!
Anyway, this film is so derivative of the old Christopher Reeves movies, it makes me wonder why they didn't just try for a complete remake instead of this soft reboot crap.
I got those. Look, in the sky, Chief.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
No, look, it's... You wanted to see me?
Superman is back from wherever he's been since Superman 4 came out. Lex Luthor's rich again. Lois Lane is still a reporter. It's like nothing's changed at all since we last saw Superman, and the stuff that has changed goes right back to the way it was as soon as we see those characters for the first time. And the biggest and most interesting difference between these and those old movies is the fact that Superman and Lois now have a kid together, but this doesn't affect the plot at all. One more complaint. This film isn't nearly funny enough. Christopher Reeve's Superman was fun because it didn't really take itself too seriously. Here, everyone is deathly serious, except for Lex Luthor, and Lex is only funny because he takes himself far too seriously. This film is missing the fun associated with those older movies. Like most films at this point in the list, this is a mixed bag. For one, it has some of the best animation and action sequences in any of these movies, as well as a pretty good storyline involving Brainiac. However, it has a lot of problems bringing it down.
Didn't you hear?
No, I didn't hear.
You really should read my column.
Let's see. The biggest problems are twofold. The first is that the pacing of this is kinda just wrong. It counters fast-paced action with slow-paced exposition, which can be fine used sparingly, but this is a full movie of swinging back and forth between these two opposing speeds. It's like every other scene is so boring it practically puts me to sleep, but the next scene is so fast-paced and ultra-violent, I'm wide awake again.
You all right, Miss Lane?
I am now Superman.
Nice outfit.
Thanks. If I knew I was going to be abducted, I might have skipped the heels.
The second problem is that though the Brainiac plot is very exciting, it takes a backseat to Lois and Clark's relationship problems.
I want a normal life, Clark.
Oh, I don't know if life with me is ever going to be normal.
At least in this film, he's not hiding his identity from her. Another issue is the humor. It's noticeably bad. So it's a good thing the writers didn't try to tell too many jokes throughout the film, but they do enough that it stands out in how awful these jokes are.
I got a little theory about Kent, the way he's so secretive about his personal life. Ask him if he's got a girlfriend, you never get a straight answer. How he's not really a sports guy, but he's in that great shape.
Huh.
I'm just saying.
Anyway, once the movie realizes it has a main villain to defeat, it becomes pretty good. But it's kind of a hike to get there. This is yet another film in DC's canon, where they took the Doomsday storyline and then did whatever they wanted with it. But that's not the real issue of this movie. In fact, it took me a while to figure out what the problem was with this film, because it's really just its overall mediocrity. It's a subpar plot with average animation and voice acting that doesn't stand out in any way.
Smallville's going on assignment in a dangerous part of the world.
They say I'm brave, but I'm bulletproof.
Also, I get the impression that whoever draws the backgrounds is different from whoever draws the people moving in the foreground, as one looks very stylized and picturesque, which makes the somewhat cartoony characters stand out and not in a good way. Also, I'm kind of sick and tired of Lois Lane not knowing that Clark Kent is Superman, the two people she sees more than anyone else in the world.
We've been together for 6 months. It'd be nice if I could start calling you something other than Superman.
He also goes by Kal-El.
Shut up.
Can we just change this forever? Glasses are not a disguise. Anyway, the action at the very least is pretty good in this film, but outside of the Doomsday fight, there's not nearly enough of it.